Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Brian Lee with us. He's the co-founder at Gildre and also co-founder at Roamli. He's all about building stuff together. This podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start your own pod or be invited to a podcast, we have a free ebook on our website showing you how to monetize podcasting with Google AdSense money, sponsorship money, and lead generation money. So podfire.com for that. Brian, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Charles, and appreciate it. Definitely been a fun journey, and kind of as you said, right, a lot of what I've been focused on the past couple of years here and beyond, just continuously building with other founders and understanding, a lot of other pain points that founders just go through, right? Whether it's a bootstrap business, VC venture backed, in tech or product or services, a lot of the same issues that founders face are not so unique to them. So it's really helpful for me to kind of dive in and obviously teaches me a lot too, and getting to work with them, things that I'm still constantly learning each day.
Right. So you seem to have started in sales, right? And then your first official startup was Roamli in 2019. So how was the transition from sales to being a startup founder?
Yeah, and really right out of university, like you had mentioned, right, I started off in sales, eventually transitioned to product, but within CPG. So was not, in the traditional tech space, was at the Hershey Company, Ferrero Group. So building kind of pack types for the Costco's and grocery stores of the world, which was a ton of fun, right? Got to work with whole different departments, from creative and packaging to pricing and everything like that. So give me a good baseline for understanding like the tech side of product, and I guess what you could call shipping features or shipping updates. But really, I think early on into that career, while I worked with some amazing people, realized that probably wasn't, the best path for me for the next 30, 40, however many years. And on that vein, I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug a little bit right after, probably about 2014. If you're familiar with like escape rooms, had actually opened about half a dozen escape rooms here in the US. And so, while not the traditional tech venture, gave me a little bit of exposure into retail and just kind of what it takes to kind of build that out. And yes, of course, that's kind of what helped segue my co-founder and I into launching Roamli, which, the build started in 2017, eventually launched our first product out in 2019, and, saw everything kind of reverberate across the industry, especially within travel tech, which Roamli was with the pandemic and what happened in 2020. So definitely an interesting journey. But yeah, the path kind of from sales and product in CPG definitely helped me give a good baseline for product and tech, because I think at a certain point, right, everyone deals with founder-led sales, whether you're selling agency services, consultancy services, or a product. And so I think having some type of sales background, whether you've done it your whole career or just picking it up, is important at some point in the founder journey. But it kind of gave me a good baseline to work off of.
The escape room stuff, what did you learn building those, right? And did the puzzle solving skills that you might have developed controlling and creating these puzzles yourself, or did they serve you in your other ventures?
I think so, a little bit, at least to say. Like, I won't pretend I'm the most, handy person out there. So my co-founder and friend, he's the one that, when it came to using the table saw or any welding or things like that, that was well outside of my grasp. But in terms of, swinging a hammer and using a drill and some basic things, that was a fun learning curve, right? But I think it's, the problems that we saw with that business are not so different than you see with any other startup, right? Or any other company. It's, is this something that people want, right? What are they willing to pay? Are they willing to pay for it? Is there a big enough market where you're, opening an escape room or opening a business that it's going to bring in enough revenue to, to cover expenses, right? To pay yourselves. And so I think it gave us a good foundation, whether we knew it or not, into what we would eventually build at Roamli and into tech. But I think the same goes for any founder, right? You could have a hot dog cart, right? You could have a retail clothing store. You could have a product that goes on Shark Tank. But I think a lot of these problems are the same that we're finding over and over. And so, yeah, for the escape rooms, right, while it was vastly different than what we're building at Roamli and what I'm building now at Gildre, and what a lot of founders see, I think a lot of those same problems and ways to solve it are similar. And whether that, again, that's working at like 4 a.m., to put the finishing touches on a room before the first booking comes in at 8 a.m. that same day, versus, shipping a feature for a customer or client, at a deadline. So I think a lot of the same problems, just at, different scales.
Right. And Roamli, tell me a bit more about it. Was it successful? Like how many clients and what were the challenges scaling that one?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we're still building it, right? Or still, launching it, right? We have clients and customers now, and it's definitely been a very interesting journey because, when we first launched, we started off as a B2C consumer travel tech app, right? The idea was that we were out on a trip in Edinburgh with some friends, and our tour guide, our friend, came down with pneumonia from a hike, and so he was the one that was, effectively guiding the whole trip. And so for us, we kind of just ended up wandering around the city and exploring, and thought, there'd be something cool instead of having to comb through TripAdvisor or Yelp or all these big blogs, right? Just to find the things the locals are doing. And so that was the original ethos behind the app. And so we built, everything around that, all of our UI, UX, everything, right? And then the pandemic happened, and obviously, people weren't really traveling. And so for us, the big piece is, okay, well, we just spent the past really 3 years building this, getting users, advertising, running local, go-to-market campaigns with scavenger hunts and games in cities all over the world. And now we're kind of stuck, right? And mind you, we hadn't monetized at that point, right? We had about thousands of users, but, it was still just kind of in that same flow, right? Let's build something cool, and then we'll figure something out then. And so, right, at that point, we were going through the Draper program out in San Mateo. And luckily that really helped us quickly pivot. All right, how do we work with chambers of commerce, destination marketing groups, tourism boards, different types of organizations to really pivot, completely really to a B2B model, because these were also organizations that were so heavily impacted by the pandemic that, they were also struggling through that. And 5 years later, that's still our model here today. And so in that same vein, right, the market's very different. Not to say that we would have captured so much of it from the consumer travel side, but even at 0.5% of market share of there, right, that's way bigger than the entire market when you look at B2B within chambers of commerce, right, government organizations, long sales cycles, things like that. So definitely been a learning curve as we've kind of moved and adapted through that. But really, the most fun part is that, the joy of building it that we did on the consumer side still is there for the B2B side. So certainly a different sales model, but at least the passion has kind of stayed there for us over the years.
Right. And it's $50 a month. If I use the app and I have a bunch of employees, what could a scavenger hunt look like precisely for someone that has never used these personally?
Yeah. And I mean, so we do a lot with, so let's say, right. And excuse me, where are you based out of again, Charles? I want to make sure.
Oaxaca, Mexico.
Okay. Mexico. There you go. Perfect. So in Mexico, there's so many different cities between, you have the touristy ones for maybe it's Cabo and Cancun and all those, but then you have, even in Mexico City, just so many places that have a lot of culture and things for people to discover. And a lot of the ideas are that, you go on Google, right? You'll see the top things that are rated through travel bloggers or whatever. And how do you find, again, these more hidden things that someone that's lived there for 10 years might only know about, right? Maybe it's murals, maybe it's statues, maybe it's monuments. And so the idea would be whichever cities that, our partners are, they want to host, different tours, right? Maybe it's like a haunted tour in Chicago, a gangster tour in Chicago. Maybe it's a, nature tour out in San Diego. And so a lot of these cities will kind of build these activations to bring people in either to explore new businesses or to explore the city as a whole. And so we've done like fun citywide scavenger hunts with nonprofits as well. We ran one down in Austin, Texas a few years ago, had, probably about 100 or 200 teams that were actively participating, kind of roaming around. So it's just like a fun way for people to discover their own city, even if they've lived there for their entire lives. So a lot of our customers will use that, even escape rooms, right? Our core other customers, they'll kind of build these fun activations in their own city that, you can just go out and explore when it's nice out. So it's kind of been a fun little way to kind of just see people out. And the best part is, right, you can kind of see all the pictures and things they've shared. So seeing people running around and like running into each other, that's kind of the most, fun part of seeing this from anywhere in the world.
It's cool. I just asked ChatGPT to build a Scavenger hunt for me. I mean, Oaxaca would be not so good as an example because my wife already knows it. My native Montreal could be better, like find X place, right? And I don't know, asking chat make it a bit romantic or something. How do you spot these places? Is it like Google Maps API? And then how do you make sure that the recommendations are good? Do you use any like AI into this to make it more relevant?
And that's a great question. And I think honestly, like had we had these tools, so when we were really like scraping and building everything from scratch to put on the platform, this is 2017, 2018. So yeah, pre ChatGPT, pre Claude, pre a lot of these tools that would have made our work like infinitely easier. So I still remember the days of like literally going on Google Maps and finding like all these individual statues or murals and then like getting the coordinates, right? Uploading it into our app, right? And creating my own description, right? And all these different things in the process. And even, I was just in Quebec City and Montreal last month just to kind of explore. And, there's just so many things you see that aren't even on Google Maps, right? That just would not be there otherwise. And so half of it was going to these cities, right? And taking pictures ourselves, populating it, right? We would get like back when bird scooters and Lyft scooters, right, were still really prevalent in a lot of cities, we would get like a day pass, right, and just scooter around and capture all these pictures of everything and upload ourselves. So honestly, if this had come out 3 years later, it probably would have saved us hundreds of man hours of being able to use AI to kind of find these things. But truly everything in the app is all made directly through our partners. So a lot of our customers who have their own tours and games built to the site, they can use the internal Roamli platform to kind of find suggestions, right? I want this to be 2 hours long. I want this to run from, Manhattan all the way up to the Bronx, right, in New York. And it'll kind of make some suggestions. So I wouldn't call it necessarily a fully AI tool, but there are some kind of things that help suggest what could be helpful in building out a tour.
Right. Then how did that lead you to Gilder? Yeah, tell me more about that business model also.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, for us, really through building Roamli, I was in CPG, sales product by trade. My co-founder and friend was a software consultant. So, most of I would say, if not 99% of our network were also in the 9 to 5 space, or very much not necessarily founders. And so, for us, it was just how do we ask some of these basic questions where, hey, if we're looking to fundraise, right, should we be an S corp versus a C corp versus an LLC in Delaware or Wyoming or wherever? And again, and this is also pre-Chat GPT, so a lot of Googling and just trying to figure stuff ourselves. And we realized for first time, relatively naive founders, we didn't have a big network. So getting into an accelerator, even building our first pitch deck, just seemed like such a daunting task. And so the idea behind Gildre was really, how do you build something for, I like this phrase that Watson Institute and a lot of other groups use called that missing middle. And so you've got there's no shortage of entrepreneurial, incubators and accelerators and communities out there, but they're just super fragmented, between those that cater to like 1% of entrepreneurs and those that try to cater to everyone. And these 1% groups, which are great groups, but maybe you have to have X millions in revenue already, right? Or you have to have X exits under your belt. So it's this nice little circle for people that have achieved that, but doesn't really show people a path how to get there, right? Or the steps to be able to build into that stage. And the flip side, you look at it, right? There might be groups with thousands or tens of thousands of members. Maybe it's like a Discord server, like a Reddit group or something like that. And you poke your head in, and it's really just a lot of noise, honestly, where you see people just self-promoting and trying to sell each other, or you're not actually building any type of meaningful connections. And, as a founder, you hardly have a few hours a month, maybe, to kind of pick your head up outside of building and talking with customers and building features. And you can't really waste your time just with with events that don't add value, or people that, are just trying to pitch you or sell to you. And so for us at Gildre was, how do we build something for that middle 98% of people that value knowledge, value two-way learning, and understand that it doesn't matter if you've been in it for 40 years or 4 years. Everyone's got something to contribute and learn from each other. And just like your podcast, right? It's like the chance to be able to work with founders and hear their stories helps me understand, because, I've been in this space, less than a decade, really. So for me, it's still being able to learn so much from people that have done it before, successfully or unsuccessfully. So that was kind of a lot of the hidden motivation as well behind us trying to build that out.
Yeah, I also have a quote unquote peer groups left on the advisory side of things. It's called Level 96, right? And it's CEOs and founders that brainstorm together. You've been attending my meditation group, which I think is an interesting front end. I'm charging 1K per month, but I give out 90 days for free. And it's been a pretty challenging model, right? Because in the end, you're trying to build a community. Communities are incredibly hard. I think it's very much about the outreach, right? In these programs, how many members, quality members that you can get, which you need not only to filter your ICP a lot, but reach out to a high quantity of people, then follow up with them, remind them, make them accountable, right? How do you take all of that and make your successful peer group happen? Seems like it's incredibly hard to lift off the ground.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that comes to, not just community building, whether you're a community-based business or community building at companies like Duolingo, right? Or places that have like large features and their own platforms. I think it always comes down to like that value added focus. And, right now there's, I get it, right? Like billions, at least hundreds of millions of hours of content out there, I'm sure on YouTube and everything like that. And so like, if you wanted to hear someone speak through a workshop or whatever, right, I'm sure you could go YouTube them. You could find something pretty recent, right, and say, oh, okay, cool. Like, got value out of that, whatever. But I think, especially like with what you're doing from the CEO meditation groups, what a lot of things that people are looking for these days are things you can't traditionally find, just on a podcast on Spotify or an old video clip, right, on YouTube. And so, when it comes to these peer groups and putting people together, people generally want to surround themselves with others who they feel like are in the same, building stage or going through it together. And so, even though we've got about 270 members in Gildre, the goal is how can we make it more intimate where we feel like every single person knows everyone in the community, right? Maybe it's not, on a first name basis where you could kind of pick them out all the time, but you say, hey, yes, I'm building in fintech. I know all these 20 other people are as well. Right. I would easily have a virtual coffee, in-person coffee, beer, whatever with them. And I think in terms of getting, people to keep showing up, that's kind of the big thing we built around it is it's like, you're not necessarily letting, the coach down or the advisor, the person leading the session, but, you're there because you want to keep connecting with these same founders, every week or every other week. And that's kind of the sauce that we've seen is like, we've had, I don't know, probably about 18 months that we've been building this. And we're pretty happy, knock on wood, that we've gotten a 95% retention rate. But again, it's not, there's hundreds of other communities out there that are kind of offering a lot of similar things. To me, the difference maker is always the people in these communities. And if you're vetting them, making sure it's people that are actually adding value and interesting and not just there to take, right, but are actually giving as well, then I feel like we've gotten, a little bit higher numbers in terms of who's actually engaging or who's actually attending these events. But it also helps having unique events outside of the traditional, listen to a panel speak or something like that.
So how do you outreach to these folks? Are they all CEOs and founders? Do you charge every members? How big are the groups?
Yeah. So, I mean, the good news is most of it has come from, referrals and kind of word of mouth or suggestions. For us, I always kind of think about it as what's the end goal, not just for any community business, but any business, right? Like whether I know founders who their sole goal is, right, I'm here to build a unicorn. I'm here to have hundreds of employees and scale and either return shareholder value or exit, right? And then I have founders that say, hey, I love the space that I'm in. I want to build a nice business. Doesn't have to necessarily be a lifestyle business, but I want to have this healthy business, support people, and that's more than enough for me, right? And so when I think about what that outreach looks like, especially when it comes to community, for us, it was never about, every single member that joins, they have a one-on-one interview, right? There's no kind of like free link or online link to just sign up and join. For us, it's very important that we vet each person that comes in, because again, the last thing you want with community, I kind of use this gym analogy where, maybe not all gyms, but I think I know a lot of gyms where their goal is for you to sign up, right? You pay them each month, but you don't use the machines. And then, they get your money and everything stays fresh. And so for community, for me, it's always, that's the last thing you want, right? You want a lot of people, you want everyone who ideally joins and is part of it to contribute, right? Because you can see a lot of communities that have these same resources and same events, but the individuals that are in the community is really what makes it special. And so if you're not having people, if you have 1,000 people paying but they're not engaged, then what's the point? And so for us, it was always, can we really limit that and make sure the people joining are really hyper focused and here to learn, right? They're here to kind of dedicate, even if it's just 2 hours a month, right? They know that it's better to use those 2 hours learning from someone, meeting with someone, attending an event, something, versus no alternative. And so that's kind of been what that reach out looks like for us. We obviously meet a lot of other people through partnerships, through other events we co-host. But for us, it's always been, is this person, Gildre needs to be a fit for them just as much as they are for Gildre. So, we don't necessarily take that hard sell route. It's kind of just fun being able to see who's a fit. And again, we'll be the first people to tell you if, we're not a networking community. We're not here to help you necessarily sell to other members and things like that. We love when it happens organically because people trust and like working with people they actually get to know. But at the same time, right, we're here really to provide that support and resources and be advisors for that. So the reach out has pretty much been pretty minimal because most of our members are pretty good advocates for us in that sense.
Right. And what's the price to join? Like I've seen a lot of resistance to people. Like that's why I give them like a 90 days trial to try it out. I do believe in financial accountability though, so that they show up, right? Because not showing up is a big problem, mastermind.
Oh, yeah.
So how much do you charge them? Have you evaluated price elasticity on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, for example, our gold tier, which is our core event tier, that's $59 a month. And really the idea behind that was we wanted to exactly like you said, right? We wanted to price it where it was affordable and accessible to all founders, right? Especially that missing middle. But it was there to kind of price out the people that would join for the wrong reasons, right? For these like hundreds of tens of thousands of Slack or Discord groups where people are just like, like my thing on Product Hunter, like follow me here or whatever. And so, that to your point, right, that little bit of pricing differential is enough to say, all right, perfect. Even if I'm paying, 5 coffees worth of whatever a month, right? Like I'm going to join this event. I'm going to go and meet, take advantage of these resources because my time is valuable, right? My time is limited. And we know that most founders, right, it is financial issues and, time issues that most founders face. And so, we can't necessarily magically print more money for people, but we can definitely give people a way to take back their time or make their time, even more valuable. So it ranges from 59 up to we have, plans for one-on-one mentorship or help with fundraising or help with different certain things and finding advisors. And that's kind of how our tiers plan our plans tier.
And how do you manage different personalities together in a group and make sure that some people don't take over too much time? It seems to me that chemistry is incredibly difficult thing to crack. Maybe AI could help with this. Do you have a formula for that? And also, do you have a moderation formula to make sure the group is advancing forward for everyone and we're getting somewhere through these meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. From a moderation standpoint, yes, I think that's kind of the most important thing. If you've got some suggestions for AI tools, we're all ears. I think I always joked like if it's kind of got you see where they would have the political debates or stuff, you have like kind of the speaking time for people in the corner, right? So without tracking things like that, that could always be interesting. But I think it's our moderators and our advisors and our mentors do a phenomenal job of being able to facilitate the conversation. We try to keep the group smaller, as I'm sure you do kind of with your roundtable groups as well. But, if you have an hour and you have 50 people, right, that's not, and, the idea is for everyone to talk. That's probably not going to work out too well. And so I think it's about limiting the group size, making sure that, whatever the agenda is for that call, the moderator is prepared to kind of, hey, everyone gets a chance to speak. But just like everything, right, you kind of have to politely cut people off at a certain point, especially if, right, it gets to a point of a rant or ramble. And so the first thing you brought up about how do you kind of deal with different personalities, that's a great question because honestly, I'm still figuring that out. There's no perfect way to do it. I think just like anything, you have to have moderators in chat, moderators in the group. And at the same time, right, like you want to welcome opinions because I think again, there's CEOs who have spent 30, 40 years in a specific industry learning from recent MBA grads, right? Or undergrads who have spent 2 years in it, right? But are at the forefront of whatever is being built. And so I think the biggest thing for us is we challenge everyone to check your egos at the door when they join. That, doesn't matter what you've done, doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you've been, right? Just being able to give everyone a chance to share these insights, kind of take over or like disregard that imposter syndrome, gives everyone a chance to be able to kind of settle on the same playing field. And I don't know if you're frozen right now, but it looks like you're reloading. So I'll let it keep spinning there. Hey, Charles, can you hear me?
Causing immense bug on my Google Chrome, but am I audible?
Yeah, I heard you right now. You're kind of going in and out, but I hear you right now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Google Calendar is killing my Chrome right now, but I just closed it. I should be back now. Thanks for the added value today. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just LinkedIn Brian Connor Lee. I think /Gildre, but if you search Brian Connor Lee, you'll find me. Yeah, anytime, right? I try to give back. I mentor for Founder Institute and Watts Institute, some other organizations, and love just meeting founders, right? Chatting anytime. If there's anything I can support with, definitely don't hesitate to send me a message on LinkedIn. And Charles, love the community that you've also built, because I think the last thing I'll leave it with is like, in a world where there's so many types of similar events that you see, not just in communities, right? Just online, seeing these different things like meditation or roundtables, or, I just joined like a breathwork type session not too long ago. And just these different things that I've traditionally not grown up with or believed in gives me a chance to kind of try things out that, might be better for me, and in turn better for the people I can introduce it to in my network. So looking forward to the next, meditation session as well next Wednesday, and any other fun events you keep bringing up.
Yeah, networking